My fiancé wants his father to check if I'm a virgin before our wedding. My fiancé Stefan decided to text me an hour ago saying we need to discuss some final wedding preparations tonight. Mind you, this is the same man who casually mentioned that his father needs to verify my virginity before we can get married. I've been sitting here going through our text history trying to pinpoint the exact moment he completely lost touch with reality. The past few weeks have been him explaining why their demands are actually totally normal, and I'm just being dramatic about perfectly normal family traditions. I genuinely cannot tell if he's this brainwashed by his parents, or if he's seeing how far he can push before I snap. Either way, we've arrived at whatever fresh hell this is. But let me give you guys context so you can hate him too. A couple weeks ago, Stefan came home from dinner with his parents and casually mentioned that we needed to handle something important before the wedding. I was ready to discuss venue details, maybe finalize the guest list, or pick up marriage license paperwork. Basically normal pre-wedding tasks. But then Stefan drops this bomb on me like it's the most reasonable thing in the world. He tells me his father needs to physically examine my hymen to check if I'm actually a virgin. Just like that. No discussion, no asking how I felt about it, just a straight-up announcement that my future father-in-law was going to look at my body down there. I actually laughed at first because I thought he had to be joking. Who announces that their dad needs to examine their fiancé like that, and expects her to just smile and nod? But Stefan wasn't laughing. He was looking at me like I was supposed to be honored by this family tradition or something. When I told him that absolutely was not happening, he got this condescending look on his face and said I was overreacting. Overreacting? Like not wanting my boyfriend's father to physically check my hymen makes me some kind of crazy person. He said if I trusted him, this wouldn't be an issue, and that my reaction was showing my true colors. I tried explaining that this wasn't about trust. It was about basic respect for my body. That no normal person would be okay with this kind of thing, regardless of how much they trusted someone. But Stefan kept circling back to this story that I was being disrespectful to his culture and making it weird. Like those are words that should make me back down and apologize. The argument went on for hours. He kept saying it was just a quick exam, that his dad knew what he was doing, that I was making it into something dirty when it was just a simple check. Like calling it a simple check somehow made it better. He kept bringing up random examples of doctor visits to make his point. Pap smears, regular checkups, dentist appointments. As if those situations were somehow the same as my fiancé's father examining my hymen. The backwards logic was honestly impressive. What really got to me was when I asked why his purity didn't need checking. Stefan actually laughed at that. He said it was different for men, that everyone knows men can't be checked the same way, that this was about family honor and tradition. The double standard was so obvious it was almost funny. But according to Stefan, I was being difficult for even bringing it up. Every objection I raised got twisted into me being dramatic, emotional, crazy, insecure. He had an answer for everything. When I said this felt wrong, he said I was being inappropriate for making a medical exam into something sexual. When I said no other couples I knew did this, he said I was being closed-minded about other cultures. When I said I felt uncomfortable, he said I was being selfish and only thinking about myself instead of our future family. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about how wrong this all felt, how every instinct I had was screaming that this wasn't normal or okay. But then I'd remember Stefan's disappointed face, his words about trust and culture, and I'd wonder if maybe I was overreacting. Maybe this was one of those things where I just didn't understand because I wasn't from his background. But no. Deep down, I knew this was messed up. The next day, Stefan texted me around noon saying he was at his parents' house. They were getting everything ready for tomorrow's appointment. The way he phrased it made my stomach turn. Getting everything ready. Like this was some kind of event to prepare for. His next few texts were even worse. He was excited. Actually excited. Talking about how his dad had the room all set up, how his mom had bought special supplies for the exam, how the whole family was looking forward to welcoming me properly into their traditions. I stared at those messages feeling sick. This man was genuinely happy about his father examining my body. There was something so deeply wrong about his tone, about how casual and normal he was making this sound. Then came the text that made me call him immediately. Stefan said I needed to come over to their house right now so his dad could explain the whole thing to me in detail. He answered on the first ring sounding way too cheerful. When I asked if he was seriously going through with this, if he actually expected me to show up, he had the nerve to act confused. He said of course he was still planning it. Why wouldn't he be? We'd already discussed this. Discussed? Like that argument where I said no 100 different ways counted as agreement. The conversation went bad fast from there. I told him this was insane, that no part of this was normal or acceptable, that I wasn't going to let his father examine me like that. But instead of listening or showing any understanding of why I was upset, he doubled down. He said I was proving his point about not trusting him, and that if I was secure in our relationship, I wouldn't be making such a big deal about a simple family tradition. That's when Stefan got mean. Really mean. He started attacking my character, saying I wasn't family material, that I was embarrassing him in front of his parents. He said his whole family was disappointed in me, that I was acting like trash, that women with nothing to hide don't react this way. The shift in his tone was scary. This wasn't the man I'd been dating for 2 years. This was someone cruel and manipulative, showing his true colors. He told me I needed to be at his parents' house tomorrow at 7, or he was calling off the wedding. Just like that. An ultimatum. Show up and let his father examine my hymen or lose everything we'd built together. The choice he was giving me wasn't a choice at all. It was a threat wrapped up in family tradition language. But the thing that made my blood run cold was what I heard in the background. Voices. His parents were there. They were listening to him berate me, listening to him tell me I was acting like trash, listening to him give me this disgusting ultimatum. And they weren't stopping him. They were probably nodding along, agreeing that I was the problem here. I could hear his mom say something in the background, and Stefan laughed. Actually laughed. Then he told me his mom said I should be grateful they're even willing to accept me into the family after how I've been acting. The audacity was insane. Like I should be thankful for the opportunity to be violated by my future father-in-law. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just dealing with Stefan anymore. This was his entire family. They all thought this was normal. They all expected me to just show up and submit to this horrible thing. And if I didn't, I was the bad guy. So here we are, a couple weeks into this nightmare. And Stefan just texted asking if I've thought about his conditions. Part of me wants to tell him exactly where he can shove his conditions. But a bigger part of me has been doing some thinking of my own. Because while Stefan has been pushing these insane boundaries and testing how much violation I'll accept, I've been doing some planning. And I think it's time for him to learn that some demands go both ways. I'll let you guys know how this conversation goes. Something tells me Stefan is about to get a reality check he wasn't expecting. First update. I honestly don't know where to begin with what just went down between Stefan and me. I'm sitting on my couch right now still shaking because I cannot believe what just happened. So remember how I said I had some planning of my own? Well, I just got off the phone with Stefan, and this man has completely shown me who he really is. And I'm genuinely questioning how I didn't see this side of him before now. I called him back about an hour after that ultimatum phone call. Spent the time in between mentally preparing myself for whatever reaction he was about to have. Part of me was hoping maybe he'd calm down and realized how absolutely insane his demand was. Nope, not even close. Stefan answered on the second ring, sounding way too pleased with himself for someone who'd just given his fiancé an ultimatum about genital inspection. He jumped right in asking if I'd come to my senses about the whole thing. No apology, no acknowledgement of how messed up this whole situation was. Just casual confidence, like I'd obviously realized he was right. When I told him I wanted to discuss some conditions beforehand, he got this relieved tone in his voice and said he was glad I was finally being reasonable about this. My stomach turned because that response told me everything about how he saw this situation. In his mind, me having conditions meant I was agreeing to be violated by his father. But instead of arguing with him, I stayed calm and told him I'd been thinking about his family's tradition. He said that was great, that his parents would be so happy I was coming around. I laid it out for him. I said I'd agree to his father's examination under one condition. Stefan immediately said sure, whatever I needed to feel comfortable, his family was willing to be accommodating. He thought I was going to ask for something simple like having his mom in the room, or dimming the lights, or some other minor adjustment that would make this nightmare slightly less horrible. I told him the condition was that he had to go through an equally invasive examination first, that I'd be choosing who performed it on him. Same level of intimacy, same type of invasion, he experiences it before I do. The silence on the other end of that phone was deafening. I could actually hear Stefan processing what I'd just said. When Stefan finally spoke, his voice came out completely different. Higher pitched, almost strangled. He asked me what the hell I just said to him. I repeated myself slowly and clearly. If his father was going to physically examine my hymen, then someone I chose would need to examine Stefan's genitals in an equally invasive way first. A doctor I pick? Same type of exam. Him first, then me. Fair is fair, right? Stefan actually gasped. Like a full dramatic intake of breath, like I'd just suggested something truly horrific. He said that was the most disgusting thing he'd ever heard in his entire life. That what I was suggesting was sick and perverted and completely out of line. The word perverted kept coming up like he couldn't believe those thoughts had even entered my brain. I asked him how it was different from what he was asking me to do. The hypocrisy was so obvious I wanted to laugh. When it's my body being examined, it's a simple family tradition. But when someone suggests the same thing for him, suddenly it's sick and perverted? Stefan started talking really fast, his words tumbling over each other. He kept saying it just wasn't the same, that I knew it wasn't the same, that I was deliberately trying to twist things to make him look bad. But when I pressed him to actually explain what made it different, he couldn't give me a real answer. He said it was about virginity checks for women, that this was how it's always been done, that I was being ridiculous by pretending not to understand. I pointed out that if the purpose was really about purity and family honor, then surely his purity should matter just as much. Why didn't he need to prove anything? That's when Stefan completely lost it. He started yelling about how I was disrespecting his entire culture, that women have been doing this for generations and never complained, that I was acting like some crazy feminist trying to destroy traditional values. The shift from calm to screaming was so sudden it actually startled me. I stayed quiet and let him rant. He went on about how marriage is about trust and respect, and how I was showing neither by suggesting something so degrading to him. I waited until he ran out of steam, and then asked him very calmly why examining me wasn't degrading but examining him would be. Stefan said because that's just how it works. That everyone knows men and women are different and different standards apply. Then Stefan's voice got mean then. Really mean. He said I was acting like trash. That respectable women don't argue about these things, they just do what's expected of them. That my resistance was showing my true character and his family had been right to insist on this exam because clearly I had something to hide. I asked him what exactly I was hiding by not wanting his father to touch my genitals. He said women who push back this hard always have reasons. And that innocent women don't make such a big deal about a simple check. Then I heard his mom's voice in the background and Stefan responded to her. When he came back to me, his tone had changed again. Now he sounded righteous and backed up. He said his mom wanted to talk to me, to explain why I was being so disrespectful. I said absolutely not. I wasn't discussing my body with his mom. Stefan got angry again and said his mom was just trying to help, that she'd been through this same exam before her wedding and turned out fine. I told him I didn't care what his mom went through. This was about me and my body and my boundaries. Stefan said that's exactly the problem, that I kept saying my body like I wasn't about to become part of his family. Once we got married, family decisions applied to me too. The entitlement in that statement made my skin crawl. Then he accused me of wanting to make him feel violated. I jumped on that word. So he could understand that having someone examine your genitals against your will was a violation when it applied to him. But somehow when it applied to me, it was just tradition? Stefan started backtracking immediately. Said that's not what he meant, that I was twisting everything again. I wouldn't let it go. I kept pushing him to explain the difference. How was it a violation for him but not for me? Instead of answering, he said this was my last chance. Come tomorrow at 7 and do what's expected or we're done forever. No more discussion, no more negotiation. Just show up and submit or lose him. But here's the thing that Stefan doesn't realize. While he was busy calling me a pervert and giving me that ultimatum about showing up the next day at 7, something clicked into place for me. Because if he thinks hanging up on me after I wouldn't agree to his father's exam is the end of this, he's about to learn exactly how wrong he can be. I've got some thinking to do tonight and tomorrow I'm making some phone calls. If Stefan wants to test my boundaries and see how much violation I'll accept from him and his family, he's about to get his answer. And something tells me it's not going to be what he's expecting. I'll update you guys tomorrow after I've had time to process this whole mess and figure out my next move. But spoiler alert, I'm done being the understanding fiancé who tries to see things from his perspective while he treats my body like family property. The gloves are officially coming off. Second update. Holy shit, you guys. I can't even believe what I just pulled off. I'm literally sitting in my car outside the venue right now and my hands are still shaking, but in like the best way possible. So remember how I said Stefan was about to regret everything? Well, he just did. Let me tell you exactly how tonight went down. After that phone call yesterday where Stefan gave me his ultimatum, I spent the entire night thinking. And the more I thought about it, the more one thing became crystal clear. Stefan's whole family was backing him up on this insane demand because they thought I was the only one who had a problem with it. They were all in their little bubble thinking this was totally normal, and I was just being dramatic and disrespectful. So I decided it was time to pop that bubble in the most spectacular way possible. This morning I started making calls. Not to Stefan, obviously. To every single person we'd invited to our engagement party that was supposed to happen next month. I told them we were moving it up to tonight. Last-minute celebration before the wedding. Everyone was surprised, but most people said they could make it work. The venue we'd booked was available for a smaller party, so I called them and confirmed everything. Then I called Stefan's extended family. All of them. His aunts, his uncles, his cousins, his grandmother, who I'd only met twice. I was so sweet on the phone. Said Stefan and I wanted to celebrate with everyone before the wedding and it would mean so much if they could come tonight. Most of them said yes because who turns down a party invitation from their nephew's fiancé? I got to the venue early to set everything up. Had the staff arrange the tables so Stefan's family would be front and center. Made sure the microphone was working perfectly. Ordered Stefan's favorite foods. Made everything look absolutely perfect. Like this was going to be the happiest celebration ever. People started arriving around 5. Our friends, Stefan's coworkers, some of my family, and then Stefan's extended family started showing up. His Aunt Marie, who I'd always liked. His Uncle Jerry, who told the best stories. His cousins, who I'd gotten close to over the past 2 years. Stefan showed up around 6:30 looking confused as hell. He pulled me aside immediately and asked what I was doing. I smiled and said I wanted to celebrate our engagement with everyone we loved. He looked suspicious, but also kind of pleased that I'd organized this whole thing, He probably thought I'd come to my senses and this was my way of apologizing. We mingled for about an hour. I was the perfect hostess. Chatting with everyone, making sure people had drinks, laughing at jokes. Stefan kept giving me these looks like he was trying to figure out what I was up to, but I just smiled at him every time. Then came dinner. Everyone sat down at their assigned tables. Stefan's immediate family, his mom and dad, were conveniently not there. I'd called them too, but they'd said they couldn't make it on such short notice. Perfect. This was about his extended family anyway. The people who didn't know about tomorrow night's planned exam. After dinner, I stood up with my wine glass and asked for everyone's attention. The room got quiet. Stefan was sitting at the main table looking at me with this proud smile like his fiancé was about to give some sweet speech about their love. I started off normal. Thanked everyone for coming on such short notice, and talked about how much it meant to me to have all these important people here. Said how excited I was to be joining Stefan's family. Standard engagement party stuff. Stefan was beaming. Then I said I wanted to share something special with everyone. A beautiful family tradition that Stefan's family has for brides before their wedding. Stefan's face changed immediately. He went pale. Started to stand up, but I kept talking. I said that Stefan's father has this wonderful tradition where he personally examines each bride the night before the wedding to verify her purity. That Stefan's dad was planning to physically examine my hymen to make sure I was worthy of marrying into their family. The silence that fell over that room was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop. I kept my voice sweet and cheerful like I was describing the most normal thing in the world. I went into detail. Said how Stefan had explained that his father would need to physically inspect my genitals. How it was just a quick exam, very clinical, nothing sexual about it. How Stefan had been very insistent that if I trusted him and his family, I wouldn't have any problem with his father touching me this way. How this was apparently a tradition that had been done for generations. Stefan's Aunt Marie's face went from confused to absolutely horrified. His Uncle Jerry's mouth literally fell open. His grandmother, who'd been smiling and nodding along at first, suddenly looked like she'd been slapped. I asked the table if anyone else in the family had gone through this tradition, because Stefan had made it sound like every woman who married into this family had done it. Surely some of them could share their experiences. Aunt Marie stood up. Her voice came out sharp and angry. She said she'd been married to Stefan's uncle for 30 years, and no one had ever examined her before her wedding. That this wasn't a family tradition. That she'd never heard of anything like this in her entire life. Stefan's grandmother started speaking rapidly, saying this was disgusting. That no respectable family does this. That whoever suggested this was sick in the head. Stefan tried to interrupt. Started saying they didn't understand. That this was a different branch of the family. That his immediate family had specific customs. But Aunt Marie cut him off. She asked him directly if his father was really planning to examine me. Stefan couldn't answer. He just sat there looking like he wanted to disappear. Uncle Jerry stood up then. His face was red and he looked furious. He said if Stefan's father tried to do something like that, he wasn't family anymore. That this wasn't culture or tradition, this was abuse. The word abuse hung in the air. Other family members started chiming in. Stefan's cousins looked disgusted. One of them said she'd never let her daughters near Stefan's parents if this was true. Another said Stefan should be ashamed of himself for going along with something so violating. I stayed calm through all of this. Let Stefan's own family rip apart his justification about culture and tradition. Let them tell him exactly what they thought of his father's demand. It was beautiful watching the reality hit him that his extended family found this just as horrifying as I did. And then I did the part I'd been planning since last night. I took off my engagement ring, held it up so everyone could see, said that I couldn't marry into a family that treated women like property, that I couldn't marry a man who thought his father had the right to examine my body against my will. Stefan jumped up then, started saying I was making a scene, that I'd misunderstood everything, that we should discuss this privately. But I kept going. I said I'd suggested that Stefan undergo an equally invasive exam first to show me how simple and painless it was, and that he'd called me disgusting for even suggesting it, that he'd said examining him would be a violation, but examining me was just tradition. Aunt Marie looked at Stefan with pure disappointment. She said she'd raised him better than this, that his mother had clearly poisoned his mind. Uncle Jerry said Stefan owed me an apology and probably owed everyone in this room an apology for thinking they'd support something like this. Stefan's grandmother spoke again. She said she was disowning Stefan's parents because they brought shame on the family name. She never wanted to see them again. I placed the ring on the table in front of Stefan, told him and everyone there that I deserved better than this, that every woman deserves better than this, that no culture or tradition justifies violating someone's body. Then I walked out, just left the ring, left Stefan sitting there with his family tearing into him, left the venue without looking back. I could hear the shouting starting as I walked out the door. Stefan's family absolutely destroying him for what he'd tried to make me do. I'm sitting in my car now and I keep replaying it in my head. The look on Stefan's face when he realized what I was doing. The horror on his family's faces when they understood what he'd been demanding. The pure satisfaction of watching his whole justification crumble in front of the people he thought would support him. Stefan's been calling nonstop. 17 missed calls in the last 30 minutes. I'm not answering. Let him sit with what he's done. Let him explain to his grandmother why he thought his father examining my genitals was acceptable. Let him deal with his family's disgust and disappointment. I feel amazing. Terrifying and amazing at the same time, but mostly amazing. Because I just proved that Stefan was wrong. This wasn't a normal family tradition. This wasn't acceptable culture. This was his parents being abusive and controlling, and his extended family just confirmed it in the most spectacular way possible. Some people think they can demand their fiancé submit to genital inspection and face no consequences. But some people are about to discover that actions have consequences they never saw coming. And apparently Stefan's extended family agrees with me about what kind of man he really is. Stay tuned for tomorrow's update because I have a feeling our final conversation is going to be absolutely wild. And I'm definitely not the one who's going to be begging to fix this. Last update. Guys, I am dead. I literally cannot stop replaying what just happened. Stefan just had the most epic meltdown at my apartment, and honestly, I'm still shaking, but in the best way possible. This man really thought he could show up and manipulate me into taking him back. Nope. So after I left that engagement party, my phone absolutely exploded. I'm talking 50+ texts from Stefan. And you guys, the range of emotions in these messages was honestly scary. He'd go from "baby please I love you so much we can work through this" to "you're a disgusting whore who ruined my life," within the span of 3 texts. Back and forth, love bombing and name-calling, over and over. Some of the texts were him begging me to call him, saying we just needed to talk this through like adults, that I'd misunderstood everything and embarrassed him in front of his family for no reason. Other texts were calling me every name you can imagine, saying I was trash, that I'd always been trash, that his parents were right about me from the start. Then this morning, I woke up to a voicemail from his father. I almost deleted it without listening, but something made me press play. And holy crap, you guys. This man threatened me. Actually threatened me. He said I'd humiliated his family and spread lies about their traditions, that he had connections in the community and would make sure everyone knew what kind of person I really was, that I'd regret embarrassing them like this. The voicemail was almost 3 minutes long. Him going on and on about family honor and respect, and how I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. How dare I make him look like some kind of predator when he was only trying to protect his son? That women like me who refuse reasonable requests always have something to hide. The threatening tone made my skin crawl. I saved the voicemail, obviously. Sent it to my best friend just in case I needed proof later. She told me to call the police, but I said I'd wait and see what happened next. Probably should have listened to her. Because what happened next was Stefan showing up at my apartment at midnight. Literally midnight. Pounding on my door so hard my neighbors probably thought someone was dying. I looked through the peephole, and there he was, looking absolutely wrecked. Hair a mess, clothes wrinkled, eyes red like he'd been crying. Part of me wanted to just ignore him and call the cops. But another part of me wanted to hear what he possibly thought he could say to fix this. So I opened the door but kept the chain lock on. Asked him what he wanted. Stefan immediately started this whole devastated act, saying he couldn't believe what I'd done to him. That I'd humiliated his father in front of the entire family. That his father was only trying to protect him and make sure he was marrying someone worthy. The audacity was honestly impressive. He kept saying if I'd just let his father do the quick check, none of this drama would have happened. That it would have been over in 5 minutes and we'd be happily planning our wedding right now. Like the problem was me not submitting fast enough and not his father wanting to examine my genitals. I asked him if he could hear himself, if he understood what he was actually saying. That he wanted another man to penetrate his fiancé and was mad at me for refusing. The word penetrate made him flinch. Stefan started yelling then. Said I was disgusting for making it sexual when it was just a medical examination. That I was twisting everything to make his family look bad when they were just following their traditions. That my dirty mind was the problem, not his father's reasonable request. I stayed completely calm, which seemed to make him even more angry. I said his father wanting access to my body wasn't negotiable. That no tradition or culture made it okay. That we were done and he needed to leave. But Stefan wasn't done. He said his grandmother was wrong. That the extended family didn't understand the specific customs of his immediate family. That Aunt Marie and Uncle Jerry were being dramatic and his grandmother was just emotional. Everyone would calm down eventually and realize I was the one who caused all this trouble. I asked him if he seriously thought his family would forget that he tried to have his father examine his fiancé. He said they would if I apologized and explained that I'd overreacted. That I needed to tell everyone I was stressed about the wedding and blew things out of proportion. The manipulation was unreal. He wanted me to publicly apologize for refusing to be violated. To tell his family I was the dramatic one who made up lies about his father's intentions. To take all the blame so Stefan could save face. I told him that wasn't happening. That his family's reaction proved this wasn't normal. That if it was really just tradition like he claimed, Aunt Marie would have gone through it too. But she didn't. Because it's not tradition. It's abuse. Stefan's face turned red. He said I didn't get to decide what was abuse. That his family's customs were none of my business and I should have just trusted him. That if I'd really loved him, I would have done this one simple thing to make his parents happy. One simple thing. Like letting his father examine my hymen was equivalent to picking up his dry cleaning or remembering to call his mom on her birthday. I said we were done talking and he needed to leave. Stefan put his foot in the door to keep me from closing it. Started saying he wasn't leaving until I agreed to fix this. That I owed him that much after destroying his relationship with his family. I told him his family destroyed themselves by thinking this was acceptable. That I just exposed what was already there. That Aunt Marie, Uncle Jerry, and his grandmother all saw exactly what kind of people his parents were and made their own decisions. Stefan started crying then. Actual tears running down his face. Saying I'd ruined his life. That his extended family wasn't speaking to his parents. That his grandmother had cut them off completely. That everyone was blaming him for bringing someone like me into the family. I asked him if he noticed that his family was mad at him and his parents, not at me. That maybe that should tell him something. He said they were just confused and needed time to understand the cultural context. There was no cultural context. His extended family was from the same culture and they were all horrified. But Stefan couldn't accept that his parents were wrong. He kept circling back to how if I'd just done what was asked, everything would be fine. I told him one last time. His father wanting access to my body wasn't negotiable. There was no conversation to be had. No compromise to be made. We were done. He needed to leave my apartment and never contact me again. Stefan pulled his foot back from the door. Said I'd regret this. That I was throwing away a good man over nothing. That I'd end up alone and miserable while he found someone who actually understood respect and family values. I closed the door in his face while he was still talking. Locked it and listened to him stand there for another minute before finally leaving. Then I blocked his number, blocked his family, and blocked everyone associated with him on every platform. I'm sitting here now feeling incredible. Like I just dodged the biggest bullet of my entire life. Because that man at my door? That wasn't someone having a bad moment. That was who he really is when he doesn't get his way. Someone who thinks his father examining my body is reasonable, but me refusing is dramatic. So the fallout from all this has been absolutely wild and honestly way better than I could have imagined. Stefan's Aunt Marie called me the literal next morning to apologize for her nephew's behavior. She was almost crying on the phone saying she had no idea his parents were like that and felt horrible I'd been put in that position. She also told me Stefan's grandmother officially disowned his parents and Stefan from the family. Like hired a lawyer and legally changed her will and everything. Cut them out completely. His Uncle Jerry sent me this long message saying if I ever needed anything to let him know. That what Stefan and his parents tried to do to me was absolutely unforgivable, and he was ashamed to share DNA with them. Several of Stefan's cousins reached out too, saying similar things. One of them told me Stefan's parents have basically been excommunicated from all family events going forward. Nobody wants them around anymore. Holiday gatherings, weddings, birthday parties, nothing. They're done. The public fallout was even better. Stefan tried doing damage control on social media. Posted this long dramatic thing about cultural misunderstandings and cancel culture and how some people just can't handle traditional family values. His own family members started commenting, calling him out in the replies. Aunt Marie wrote a whole paragraph about how this wasn't culture, it was abuse. Uncle Jerry said Stefan was an embarrassment. His grandmother commented just saying, disgusting, and that was it. The post got shared around and suddenly everyone in our social circle knew exactly what kind of family Stefan came from. The absolute best part though? Stefan got engaged again like 4 months later. 4 months after our disaster. To some poor girl he'd known for maybe 6 weeks total. I felt bad for her until I heard what happened next. His parents apparently tried pulling the exact same exam requirement on her. She lasted exactly one conversation with Stefan about it, before she blocked all of them and started telling everyone she knew about what they'd demanded. So now Stefan's reputation is completely destroyed. He's known in all our social circles as the guy whose dad wants to check hymens before marriage. Women literally warn each other about him now. Meanwhile, I am absolutely thriving. Started seeing someone new about 6 months after everything went down. His family is wonderfully normal and respectful and have actual healthy boundaries.